comes from the inside out.
When we're living congruently with our values, there's happiness because there is that sense of wholeness.
Wholeness is when the way of your being matches the truth of your being.
Jennesa was initiated by the elder of the Inca Medicine School in Quito, Peru, as a result of a life-changing, multi-year adventure. This shamanic wisdom has been passed down to her, and it is her life purpose to share this energy healing medicine with her Earth family in their own soul's journey, sharing the love and ceremonial healing as it was shared with her. You will love her spirit and come to honor the healing powers of the earth as she shares her love of Pachamama, or Mother Earth, and how she found her own healing. We are sitting in your beautiful office, and I see so many fun things around. I see colors. I see so many things that would remind me of ancient heritage. So tell me a little bit about...
I love that you said that, because that's exactly what this is. Even all of these colors, these textiles, they're a reflection of ancient wisdom that comes from the earth. And so the modality, the energy medicine that I work with is, here in the West we would call it shamanic energy healing, but connected to South America, it's actually Andean wisdom, Pampa Masayoc Paco path. And so what a Pampa Masayoc is a caretaker of the spirits of nature, and we, as a Paco, a Pampa Masayoc, we help keep balance to the three dimensions. And so there's a couple of things I want to touch on, because firstly, everything is alive and with a spirit. So we might physically see Mother Earth, we might see the stars, but they actually all have a spirit associated with them. Some are female and some are male. So you think of like Mother Earth, she's a female spirit. The sun is like a male spirit. And through my work, through my initiations, through the lineage that I study with the Apaza family lineage from Quito's Peru, the Inca Medicine School, they passed on this wisdom to me through initiation. And then from there, I've been spending the last couple of years developing relationships with these spirits. And it's actually who I call on to come and do healings for people. And so when I say that I work with the three dimensions, we have the lower world, and the lower world is a place of cleansing. It's deep waters. There's also spirits that are associated with that dimension. And then we have Pachamama, Mother Earth, the dimension that we're in with the mountains, the animals, the plants. That's this world. And then we have the upper world, which is the stars, the moon, and the sky. A lot of the source of diseases and imbalance comes because of an imbalance of energy within our system. And so in the Andean tradition, they call it hucha, heavy energy. So there's no good or bad energies. It's just light or heavy. And so when we have a toxic buildup of, like, for example, stress, that's going to start making us sick, and then we're clinging and we're holding on to it, and then it's limiting our capacity to find solutions. And so working with the spirits of nature, I can call on them and assist and facilitate something like a cleansing, which helps bring back balance to a person's being. So it's a ritualistic space where I call on the sacred spirits, facilitate the cleansing, send that heavy energy out of the body and into the sacred waters, and then the waters and the elements actually will transform it into new light. And then it also, if you think about it, if we're clearing out heavy energy, all of that heavy energy that's been holding up all of the space, now that's gone, so then you can be filled back up with light energies. So that's the path that I walk. It's a path of light, cleansing, being of service. Working in Aini, that's another important principle. So Aini is right reciprocity. It's right relationship. It's giving back. And I was actually thinking about this before we sat down today, is like, for example, if you're going to go like borrow someone's car, if you do that without permission, like it causes problems, right? But if you go and you ask permission and then you can receive it, maybe fill up the gas tank and you're giving back, right?
So it's a give and a take.
It's give and receive.
Yeah, give and
exactly.
receive. Yeah.
And so part of why the earth is so sick right now is because we're extracting from her. We're not honoring her. We're not even remembering her. Like, you know, we say prayers all the time to bless our food and give gratitude and call on God, but Mother Earth is the one that gives us that sustenance, that food. And so we have forgotten her. And this path that I walk is to remember to work in that reciprocity. And it's not just not in just human relationships, but in all relationships. Are we giving and receiving to animals? Are we giving and receiving to the earth? What about the sun, who is always giving us light? Are we remembering them? Are we remembering to give back, to set intentions?
Yeah. So I want to back up. So everything that has a spirit. So are they individual? Like, you know, like everything has their individual, or are there certain types that belong in just groups of things? Do you know what I mean? Like, do the stars all have the same spirit, or do they? So they're all like individuals.
Yeah. So, for example, the lower world, that place of cleansing, sacred waters, there is, we call them angels in the Andean tradition. And so it's Mama Serena, and she's like a mother mermaid. And the legend is that when she takes a deep breath and goes, she actually will blow a rainbow. Okay, so there's that female aspect, and then there's Inca Huascar, which is also the counterpart, and they're essentially like king and queen of the lower world that help us, that are here to be of service and support us in those cleansings. But then it's really cool to explore, for example, Mother Earth in the Andean tradition. The oldest name for Mother Earth is Donea Mohia, and that's her spirit, right? But then if you want to expand even further on that, there's female mountains and there's male mountains. There's, depending on where you visit, like Apu Asangate in Peru, for example, he's a male mountain.
Yeah.
There's another Apu Koyoriti. He's a male mountain. There's Miller Park here in Utah. That's a male mountain. Bountiful, to me, is female. So every mountain can be male or female and have their own independent spirit.
Yeah.
Another cool thing that with this lineage is that they have taught me that we're not all male and female. It's actually 1 and 1 equals 2. So we're part female and we're part masculine, and then you'll start to see that out in nature, that everything is reflected as that too. Yeah. So to answer your question, I mean, the sun has its own spirit that is male. The moon has a female spirit. Different stars in the cosmology of the Andean tradition, we all come from the Pleiadians, or Venus, and the Pleiadians are a female energy that help with our creation.
I've heard that before. I just challenge people to go in a space. You can even be indoors, just looking out at nature, and if you will just pause for a minute. In fact, Eckhart Tolle talks about this, just being with a flower or something for a minute and naming it for a minute, and it's like, it really is wild to connect with the spirit of the earth, or of something that comes from the earth. You know, I remember driving along the forest one day. I was on the back of a motorcycle, so I was out in it, you know, and there was trees just everywhere, and all of a sudden I felt just this magnitude of this tree saying, like, look at me. And then there was a small tree, and it's like that one said, hey, look at me. And then I looked down on the ground, and there was like a track of grass, like along the edge of the road, right? And like one blade of grass. Look at me. And it was like one of the most amazing lessons, because there was no comparison to the other one. It was like they're just fully themselves, and they're like, yeah, and he's great. You know what I mean? He's great too. Like, it was like there zero comparison between this one blade of grass, the smaller tree, and the big grass. Were all fully like thrilled about themselves and thrilled about everything else. You know, this feeling, and it was just like it's one of those things where it happens almost in a moment of time, but like so much taught me in that moment of time, like that I've never forgotten this, how the earth has so much to teach us if we will stop and like be with it for a minute, And that's what I love about these ancient traditions, is because that's what they've learned to do. Or they haven't even learned. They know it.
So,
right? They're with it.
Yeah.
They live it.
So I love everything that you share, because it's that remembering that we are not separate from the earth, and that they're very much alive just like we are.
Yeah.
So what I want to add to that is that what's really fascinating is that one of my elders, Don Justo, he was actually born in a cave up in the high Andes. So he's part of that lineage that when the Spanish came and invaded Peru, they fled. And then it was just their families and nature, and just communication with nature. And so, and then also my other teacher, Don Alejandro, he never learned how to read. But he is the wisest, most heart-centered man that I know. But everything that he learned by being present in his life. Yeah. So just to speak to what you were saying, that everything is alive.
Oh, some things, when you are quiet down and you learn something, it's like, I was not reading a book, but I learned something very profound. Yeah. And it's amazing. Yeah, I think the word shamanism to me has become, I've heard that a lot, like it's a shamanic, like I did my 7-month shamanic walk. So I have some rites of it within shamanism, and I use a lot of what I learned in that shamanic walk in what I do as well. But it's a hard to define kind of a thing, and it's something that people think they know about, or think it's so strange or whatever. But once you go into the place and be with somebody that works with the earth, it just changes you. Like it just changes who you are. It calms you. In fact, I wanted to even say, we might say that word, I can't remember what you called it, just that negative energy or whatever that we're trying to imbalance, even that part, like I think in the Western world, we'd call that stress and anxiety. Do you know what I mean? Like we would call it stress and anxiety. It's like, it's that word stress is such this big word, but we all kind of understand what it means, but it could be work stress. It could be all this stuff.
So
do you know what I mean?
Me, stress is living in our minds.
Right. For sure.
That is what causes stress. I mean, hard things happen, and it is going to have like an impact on our nervous system. Right. And when we're sitting there trying to figure it out from our minds, we're just re-imprinting the experience. Right. We need to get out into nature. We need to be connecting with our hearts, and that's when the resources come in, and the healing. Yeah. And the lessons. And that's the thing, is like people can identify with, if you go somewhere and de-stress, you will feel better. 100%. That's it, right? Like that is it. So not to get caught up on any of the words, the vocabulary words. Another thing I love that you brought up, that it's a ritualistic kind of modality. It's ceremony. I teach all the time that spiritual side of who we are, which is the non-physical connected person, like it lives and breathes ritual and ceremony, because human beings love ceremony,
right? Yeah. And we don't even, like, I love having somebody to talk with us about, because we don't even pay attention to the rituals and ceremonies that we do have. We don't take them for what they are. For instance, I was just watching Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, and I'm watching it going, what does that mean? Like, what does that particular hat mean? What does that particular thing? All of it's symbolism, and the way they moved and the way they did stuff. It was ceremony and ritual. And the truth is that in ceremony and ritual, yes, there's meaning behind it, but I also get to bring in myself, what's meaningful to me, or what's symbolic for me. And that's why it's so amazing, because and that's why I say it's in the spiritual part of ourselves, because it isn't a physical, concrete thing. You know what I mean? Like it's representative. Yeah.
an expression of our soul.
Right. And how do you even just begin to write that into physical form or words? You couldn't even begin to describe that with 26 letters. Do you know what I mean? In words. It's like beyond.
It's beyond. It's a feeling. It's it's a lived experience.
Yes. And so when you go into a place where there's ritual and ceremony, it's feeding you in a way that we just aren't used to being fed, I think. But it's so nourishing.
It's nourishing.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's stepping into timelessness outside of ordinary time and space, and it opens us up to receive.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does. And even that, I would say what you just said is like, it really helps you give permission to yourself to receive enough that you almost, like we talked about, then you almost have, it's like that breath in, and then you've got to breathe out. Mm-hmm. So then you give. Do you know what I mean? And then
the constant exchange of energies.
Yes. So I think it's something we in the West miss out on. We don't, in a graduation ceremony, we don't talk about or think about, there's a specific song that's played, there's clothing that's worn, and we just go and sit there, and we don't sit there and think, why is that significant? We just are in a different stage, and I think we need to get back to
our roots.
Mm-hmm. We at some point we had some ritual and ceremony, but we've just kind of left it behind because we want that ritual and ceremony to be right, correct, and true. That's not even the point. Like, it's an experience. It's a living thing. It's beyond words. It's beyond, and I love the way in your practice you even move it into different worlds. You've got, and it's not bad and it's not good.
None of it's bad.
Right.
It's a path of light.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's a tool. It's a learning. It's a place to find yourself.
It is. I mean, I feel like that's what this medicine does, is that it finds, okay, so imagine you have like this garden and you're trying to plant these like beautiful things and grow these beautiful things, but if you have a bunch of weeds in there and it's subconscious, you don't even realize that it's there, well, these spirits of nature are going to come in and literally support you in pulling out that no longer serves you, all of the weeds, the debris, the poison, the sickness, the conditioning, all of that's causing disharmony within you and disharmony in your world. They're going to assist you in letting it go. And it's so cool because I think a lot of the times we think we're going to talk through something until we get an answer. And to me, the talking and the understanding seems to come later. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I think I wanted to ask you too, just to bring awareness to that everybody, all of us have it. There's no judgment in having the weeds. Like, we all have our we just have the weeds.
Totally.
And
we're human.
Yes.
We're gonna have weeds.
Yeah, and I think that's one barrier people have, is because I find is people have to, it's like they have to accept their weakness, and I just want to be like, weakness is, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't get to this point of, well, maybe at some point, but it's the journey about it. It's not the destination. Do you know what I mean?
What is it teaching you?
Yeah.
What's the lesson?
Yeah.
But yeah, the spirits of nature will come in and they'll support you. So if you have this weed that's making you sick, they're gonna come and support you in unwinding that and letting it go.
Yeah.
To bring more balance and harmony to your being, to your life.
Right.
I had a soul retrieval from Don Raul Apaza last weekend, and it was wild because, and this is something that I've been fortunate enough to be trained in, but when we go through these shocking incidences and we can't integrate the experience, our soul will actually fracture and leave. Mm-hmm. And then Pachamama, Mother Earth, she's like a magnet, and so part of the aspect of ourself will actually just go to wherever that incident happened. And it's wild to me to see my behavior and my journey of searching, learning the next thing, trying to find the next thing that's going to help me feel whole again. And then through this ceremony, Don Rolla made an offering to the earth on my name and then asked Mother Earth to release these parts of me back to me. And during that ceremony, I could feel it. I had all these like flashes across my eyes, and I could feel myself entering my life force energy, coming back into different parts of my body, like my belly, my throat, my heart. And once the ceremony was over, I was just like, oh my gosh, like what was missing was me. But that's how powerful the spirits of nature are. They're going to help bring you back to you, to your true essence, to the earth, to your natural state of being, to be in right relationship and harmony.
Wow. So where did this begin? Yeah, this is like, how did your particular shamanism or path, or whether it's for you, but let's talk first about it, the modality itself, like, where does it come from?
So this particular lineage that I study with, that I have been initiated by, it's Don Alejandro Apaza. He's the creator of the Inca Medicine School, and they are from Quicos, Peru, so the very high Andean mountains. So for me and my tradition, you don't just take the class and move on. Right. I have these lifelong relationships with the lineage that I get to maintain, and that they get to maintain as well. It's not just take my money and now I'm a shaman. It's literally a way of life.
It's like joining a family. Like, it's like, the lineage is the good word for it. You become part of the lineage.
It's the lineage.
And you just went and spent time there.
I did. I was there for about 2 weeks. I had finished up my training, and I got to be fully immersed in the experience and visit sacred sites and make offerings and sit with this family in person that has taught me everything that I know. And I got to receive my final initiation, and an initiation is actually, it's like a meeting with the spirits, and the elder will make an offering on your name and call to the spirits to come work with you. And it's really cool because the spirits, they do like an inventory and check you out. Like, they want to make sure that you're not going to do this because of power or some kind of egoic reason because you want to show off to your friends. Like, they check you out and they make sure that you have good intentions in your heart.
Oh, wow.
So, and then you get to meditate and talk to the spirits and share your intentions and ask that permission. Do I have permission to carry this medicine and share it and be of service?
Wow.
So it was really amazing. I got to go to Apu Coyoriti, and it's a really, really high mountain in Peru, and that lineage had taken their other relatives there to be initiated as well. So that was cool to kind of share in that experience and to work with the people. They are the most heart-centered people I've ever met, which is really cool that my soul called that in for my healing. For them to have something so sacred and precious, honestly, and powerful, and then be held within their family, and then they're like, and here, if you want to receive it, I mean, that's between you and the spirits, but I will give it to you. I will share that with you.
Right. I can't imagine, I should say. What was that like in that moment where are you ready or willing or able to receive it? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting because for me, everyone interprets energy like differently, right? But for me, I've learned through my initiations that there is like a telepathic communication and I hear messages. And so, I'm up on that mountain and I'm opening my heart and I'm asking them, is this okay? Like, I'm here. I came all this way. Like, is there anything? Am I good enough? All those things that come up. And I just heard like eternal cosmic laughter. And they were just like, yeah, we like you. Aww. We like you. We want to work with you.
Yeah.
And then it takes a while to really let that sink in as truth,
Right. So you mentioned before that, it called you, these heart-centered people called you, and what a pleasure that was, or how meaningful that is for you. So what brought you here? What parts of your life brought you to this? From your humble beginnings as a child, did you know you would be here now at this what was
looking
that
back, it makes sense, but going back and living it didn't.
for real? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that I have so much life experience because people can come in and share with me, pretty deep, painful things, and
no shock value.
I mean, compassion,
right.
Definitely, but it's just like, okay, like I can sit with this because I've sat with this.
Yes.
But yeah, I essentially grew up neglected.
Mm-hmm.
Parents got divorced really young. I didn't really have any stability in my life. Mm-hmm. And when you don't have that guidance
mm-hmm.
and things are really chaotic and dysfunctional around you, as a child you begin to be resourceful, and being resourceful for me was drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout my youth I got really angry.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really quite understand why. Now as an adult I can see.
Yeah, it's called fight, flight.
Exactly, yes.
Freeze or
yes,
release. It was a trauma response.
Yes,
right.
Totally. And so, so I did drugs and alcohol. I started when I was like 13,
mm-hmm.
12, but really like 13. And then, at that point, I just had so much unworthiness. So any hope of like self-esteem had just
mm-hmm.
been gone. And so, again, you don't have that love, that guidance at home. You just continue to suppress.
mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. I didn't know better, and then I didn't have the resources to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my life. That was one really long, dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And
it was your attempt at medicine.
Totally. It's so wild to see, now that I've experienced the most natural state of medicine
mm-hmm.
from the earth, how much drugs, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
distort?
Pretends.
Oh,
it's like the... Impersonate.
Yeah, that's the word.
That version of it. Like,
yeah.
it's so wild, I was listening to another podcast, I can't remember what it was, but talking about, I think it was Gabor Mate.
Gabor, yeah.
Yeah. And how he talks about people that have used heroin, like, when everyone that talks about it is like, I finally felt the love. Of the mother.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, throughout my life, I had tried to get my life together, still didn't have the resources.
Right.
And so it just continued to get worse. I got pregnant when I was 21, and that was one of the most spiritual experiences of my life. And it actually did give me hope that I have a purpose and that there is something bigger than me. But again, to be pregnant at 21 without resources, without stability, without self-esteem even, was really hard on a very literal level. On a spiritual level, I trust and know that's a story for another time, but I know deeply that everything worked out the way it was meant to be, and I'm at peace with my decision. But again, living in that moment, that compounded trauma, placing my son up for adoption was really traumatic, because my son was very well taken care of, and then it was like, okay, now how do I get my life together? And I had nothing. Right. And so that compounded, and I didn't know, and super vulnerable to say out loud, but it was maybe a little bit over a year of having my son, I picked up drugs again. I didn't know what else to do. Yeah. And that went on for a couple of years, and I had, it's addicts. I can't speak for all addicts, but I can speak for myself. I tried to quit. Like, nobody wants to be in that situation. I would quit, and then you would get so sick from withdrawing that you would use just so that you could, like, get out of bed. Right. Like, that's how bad it gets. Right. So it got pretty bad. It got really bad. Yeah. It got really bad. I was in a lot of unsafe environments. I can't believe I didn't ever go to jail. Wow. Yeah. So, which leads me into the cool thing when I was still using, my mom actually started taking me to Reiki sessions. And it was like those Reiki sessions that filled me with just enough light, and I feel like it started to like align me with my healing. The fact that people would even sit with me while I was there in that space, you know, is pretty incredible, let alone like be helpful.
And I understand I understand there's a physical part to the addiction, but I feel like when we ask people to just quit, it's like, so quit wanting to be loved. You know, if we talk about hair, you know, like Gabor, you know, it's like, can you just quit wanting to be loved? Mm-hmm. Our humanness, our biological part of who we are needs these things in place. And
right, if you're not getting love and support at home, then you're gonna go find the next thing that you can find with what you have access to.
Right, that's what our society at this point is offering. The ideas and the preconceptions we have around addiction are 180
skewed
degrees, to what the truth is, and that
no child, no 12 or 13-year-old little girl would choose to do that.
Right.
Like if her own, like,
right.
That's like, and I know that on one level I did choose it, right? But my brain wasn't even developed.
No,
and I literally didn't know.
But it's a biological need for these certain things. There's a biological
connection,
need,
love, support, to be seen,
it's biological.
nurtured.
Yeah, it's not a choice. It's not a choice. I would really like to have that. It's a need, and it's a need, and
so what need isn't getting met, which then drives people to want to use to meet this need.
Right. Mm-hmm. You started Reiki.
So I was still using, and my mom would take me to Reiki on. My sister actually took me to my very first Reiki appointment, and introduced me to this whole energy healing world, and it was like the missing link, you know? Like I remember still using, being sick, laying on the women's massage table receiving, and I had my eyes closed and I could see a figurine look at me and be waving, and I thought I was like
on something,
tripping, right? Seeing something, but looking back, I'm like, no, that was like, to me, that was me starting to connect with the spiritual world and the guides, being like, hey, like, we're here, like, you're here, and like, we're here. But anyways, it just started to connect me with light again, and so I'm really grateful for Reiki, and it helped build my spiritual foundation for sure. But and so that went on for some time, and again, to your point, like, people want to quit but they can't, and so I was there at that point of just like really wanting to quit, knowing that like either I'm going to jail or I'm gonna die. Like, that's my reality, and I knew that, so anyways, there was one night I had been up for like 3 days, and I remember I was hanging out with my drug dealer, and I remember looking at him as the sun was coming up, and I just looked at him and I said, I just want to quit. I want to stop. And he's driving me home, and then a cop comes, quote unquote, out of nowhere, and is following my drug dealer, and we're a couple blocks away from the place I was staying. We'll just say that. High level. And so the cops come, they pull the other two guys that I was with out of the car, the windows are down, and I hear the officers talking to the guys saying, are there any weapons in the car? And then I hear him say, yeah, there's one under the passenger's side seat. And naive me, I didn't know what to do, so I picked up the gun. Like, I didn't grab it, like, to shoot, but I just, like, held it in my hands to, like, take it. I didn't even know it was here. And one of the officers, I heard the safety come off on his gun, and he's pointing it at me. Ooh. And, so I understand that maybe on one level it's like, oh, no, like, to me, that was looking death in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. It doesn't get much more real than that. Had I made one error of judgment, like, I very well could have been shot and killed. Anyhow, so they ended up pulling me out of the car and putting me in the back of the cop car, and I started praying. I started praying. So I prayed for my family. I prayed to get clean. I literally said, like, the most surrendered prayer, like, I will do, like, to God.
You prayed for other people in that moment?
What do you mean?
Like, for your family?
I prayed for them to come back in my life.
Wow.
I literally was like, God, I will do anything.
Yeah.
I'm so done.
Right.
Like, please help me give this up and bring my family back to me.
Wow.
And mind you, I had been up for 3 days at that point, and within minutes of that prayer, they let us all go.
Wow.
Which, to me, I understand, like, logistically now that there are some things of, like, well, I was on private property, but I think they had reason enough to, like, I don't know, figure out the loophole, figure out what they needed to do to be able to search us, because we were all riding with drugs on us.
Right.
But, you know, I said that prayer, and I think my fate was changed, because they had the other two guys isolated, and I think they were trying to get, like, a story and a confession.
Right.
And, like, no one would talk, you know. But anyway, regardless of all of those factual things, I said a prayer, and they left. And within 24 hours, my siblings showed up and asked if I wanted help.
Wow.
So,
It was a moment. Yeah.
It saved my life.
Yeah. And I love how, looking back on those kind of things, that's what I come to grips with sometimes is, yeah, I can go back and I can rewind that and say, well, maybe it wasn't this, quote, miracle that it is, but then...
like, I'm alive.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's
I didn't die.
But I get to choose to step into that scene and call it.
Exactly.
I get to be the one that determines that was that moment, that had power, that moment had power.
Yeah, and I don't know what I would have done if they hadn't shown up, because, again, I didn't have the resources, and come to find out I had a sister-in-law who had been praying who to help. Yeah. And she couldn't get my name out of her head for, like, a month, and I think she tried to, like, reach out, and I didn't even know how to, like, talk to her, you know? Because I just was like, part of me didn't want to even bring that negative energy into other people's lives. Yeah. Like, that just felt wrong to me. Yeah. But anyways, and so then come to find out they had already been meeting and, like, asked, like, okay, like, we have until August. We need to figure this out. We have until August to figure out what to do with Ness. And August is when that incident happened, and they had their, like, very last meeting. And they had no idea the cops came. They had no idea of that experience. Right. And I guess my little brother was like, wait, does Jennesa even want help? Like, we're making all these plans to go and help her. Like, does she even want help? And it was like, well, we might as well just go ask her. Right. So, wow. Yeah, it's like logistically, sure. And then, like, spiritually, like, they were definitely tuning into me. Right. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is an amazing story. I love that story. And so then from there... how did you...
I got sober.
Yeah,
I got
step
sober.
One. Yeah, step one.
Yeah.
Sober. Yeah.
So that was about 8 years ago. And I truly think that Reiki was, like, my introduction, and then I just kind of let my path evolve until this point. Like, you know, I remember Cade reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to do the Moon Key? It's shamanism. And I remember being scared, like, what's shaman? You know? What is this thing? But, you know, he planted seeds in my life, and it was like, and it took some time to understand it. And then I studied with Danielle Bryan, who does Shamanic Twist. She does Medicine Wheel as well, and she's a beautiful, incredible teacher. And so then that was, like, the next evolution. And the Medicine Wheel is really beautiful because it's a journey about so it creates a container for you to unwind and look at all of your stuff and claim all of the gifts and be held in a medicine space. So that was, like, the next evolution after that. And then it led me here, and It was actually the Nustas that pinged me to work with the Apaza family. I had been working with another woman who gave me the right of the womb, and she talked very high level about the Nustas, and I was like, ooh, like I felt that in my heart, you know. I was like, what is that? And she shared it with me, but come to find out that like different families have different ways of doing it. And anyways, I had been calling that in too. I'm like, I want to learn the Nustas. What is this Nusta thing and this Nusta medicine? And then somehow at random, I think I typed it in on Instagram or something, and then I found like the Inca Medicine School and looking at their page, and it's like Nustas, and like my heart just lit up. Yeah, and it's the feminine. It's healing with the feminine. So
what about this modality, this lineage that you have? What about it speaks to you? What about it makes you love it? You know, what is it?
Everything.
In the short answer, everything. Yeah.
So many things. Their value system, you know, that they're family-oriented, community-oriented, that they include the earth, you know. We were, like, sitting in Peru, and we had, like, a break, and so we all eat snacks on the earth, and we're saying thank you to the earth, and we're connecting with her. And did you ask what I love about it?
Yeah.
I love that, like, this path gives you permission to go slow.
I love that. Yeah.
Right? And not to say, you know, for people that want to be quick movers, like, love that for them. Right. For me, for everything that had been in my nervous system, like, slow. Yeah. Although going through that deconditioning process to feel safe going slow was like a journey. Right. But that slow, that permission to really slow down and work with the cyclical nature of yourself, of nature. I love that you're giving back, that it's not just about taking. Like, how many of us have been taken advantage of, and it hurts. Yeah. You know, and so there's always that reciprocity that's present. I love the consistency of the lineage. Their teachings are the same. It's been literally their lineage had hung out with the earth and studied with the earth and got all of these teachings that I carry from the earth, and then they kept it potent exactly how the ancestors did. And so it's been kind of like feeding this really beautiful thing with everyone keeping it kind of the same. And
is it passed down orally? Is it an oral?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So for thousands of years, isn't that wild?
It's wild. Like, I've been making notes. I'm not there yet. Yeah. Like, you know. But yeah, it's an oral tradition. Yeah.
And they're just starting to justify, I don't know, or the oral tradition as a way, as a real live way of being. Yeah, like that sounds so strange, but it's our Western way.
I was gonna say, like, it's
got to be concrete. It's got to be written down. It's got to be tested.
But to me, that shows me, and what I'm learning about myself and my own journey is that I don't trust it. And that's why I need to have the copy. Yeah. That's why I need to write it down.
So the problem is not the thing; it's the trust.
I think so.
Right? What if we just work on the trust? Because the thing is a thing. Is it going to let you down? You know what I mean? Like, it's like...
But the thing is that we have been let down. Like, let's be honest, we have been let down. And that's another thing I love about the lineage. True. Like, they are genuinely there for me, and they genuinely don't judge me. Right. They don't judge me. In fact, they're like, what happened? You need to tell me what actually happened so that we can really help you.
Right. They legitimize the pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which isn't that a gift in and of itself?
Yes.
That's exactly how the lineage has felt with me.
Wow.
You know, like, they literally are like, you know, they work with energetics and soul and spirit, and so they literally are like, call on us anytime you need.
Right. And that moment in the back of the police car helped you realize that can happen. It can happen. You can, it's like cliche, but like, you literally can you can change your life. Yeah. You literally can change your life. Yes. Yes. So when someone comes in, you know, how do you decide what to do in a session or things, you know, when people come to visit? How do you know where to begin or what is the possibilities? Some of them, I know there's endless.
it's pretty cool because with this medicine, it's pretty simple. So generally, it's like we've all get a buildup of heavy energies. That's why we're stressed. That's why we're depressed. That's why we're getting sick, because we're holding too much stress or hard times in our being. And so typically every session with me is going to start with a cleansing and to get all that hucha, that heavy energy out. And then really from there, it's based on what the person is going through and sharing, and then also my own intuition. So the person can always choose. Yeah. But generally speaking, everything that I do kind of holds the same theme, just with different variations of like qualities of healing to it. So there's always going to be a cleansing and then a healing. So we may work with the feminine nustas because it's that feminine nurturing energy, that loving presence, and so that might be what someone is really needing that day. I also work with the chumpis, and the chumpis are like stones that get placed on the nawis. The nawis are like the Andean chakras. There's a couple different variations that make it slightly different, but for the most part it's in the same general area of the body. And those stones will actually, I'll be able to do deeper like a really, really deep cleansing, to get that heavy imprints out of the different areas. So the different areas would be like your belly button area, which is like your connection to wisdom, your solar plexus, right by the rib cage, and the Andean path, that's connected to light and new energy and good times, new beginnings, and then the heart center, right? Opening up and healing the heart. If there's been a lot of grief or heartbreak or things like that have been really sticky in the heart for a while, of course that's going to cause health problems. And so using my chumpi stone, I can scoop all of that out. And while I'm doing that, it's connecting to different elements and spirits to come and assist. So I'm using that powerful energy of nature to come and kind of do that intervention. And then again with the throat, the third eye, they say in the Andean tradition that the seat of our soul is right here, like at the top of our forehead. And so essentially, I guess my whole point though is like the nustas are cleansing and healing, as well as like ending with a blessing, getting filled with light. And then the chumpis is like a very deep cleansing of the nawis, the Andean chakras. And then I can also install bands of protection in the energy field to help protect the energy body so that it's not getting sick, continuing to take on all that heavy energy. It kind of starts to act like a filter. So that's another modality. And then a lot of the times it's a disconnection from self. It's a disconnection from nature. So if you're sick or someone is sick and depressed and they're not getting better, they probably need a soul retrieval. They're probably missing themselves. I mean, in the world that we live in, I'm sure we've all experienced some kind of variation of a soul loss. And so calling that part of you back and saying, hey, like, please come back. I want to start over. I want to work again, and letting that literal life force energy reintegrate so that you can feel whole. So that would be another method. And then another method I do is a kuya mesa healing. So my mesa stones, it's like an altar of spirits of nature, and I've collected them from different areas with permission, with offerings, giving to receive, right? And the stones actually are spirits themselves that represent the different dimensions. And so I place them on the energy centers of the body. So we have like the top of our head, which is like working, being ready to work. We have our heart center that is also a main energy center, loving unconditionally, staying open. And then our third center in our belly, which is like our wisdom center, connection to the earth. And those three centers, to be healthy and balanced, those three centers need to be in balance. And so using my Kuya Mesa, essentially, I can call in those nature spirits to help bring back balance. So Does that answer?
Yeah, I love it. And I'm just thinking, like, to find correlation to it, like, I remember my mom, she was born in 1936. She's passed away now, but I remember her telling me when she was younger, her mom would give her a little bit of baking soda and put it on her finger to brush her teeth, because her dad, it was kind of like toothpaste was hogwash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like, that's like hooey.
Yeah.
and I even gave my talk at the Wholeness Network about that, like the germ theory, and it's like, and it's like, so I always remember that. It's like, when I'm thinking of these things, to just kind of correlate them and say, they might be something that doesn't sound familiar now, but
right, it is. I'm definitely speaking a different language.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we can correlate it to, like, why do we take a bath every day? In fact,
hygiene.
Hygiene. Like,
yeah.
This is emotional hygiene. When the pilgrims, when the Europeans came to this continent, one of the things that was so abhorrent to them about the natives was that they cleansed daily. Like, they had their own superstitions about it, and so we'll look back throughout history in the back and think, wow, we didn't know what we were thinking then. Well, it's not going to change today. You know what I mean? Like, going forward 100 years from now, it's not going to be like, oh, they had it all. That's when everything got figured out, in 2022. Everything was figured out, like, in this way. And it's like, we're going to look back and be like, I cannot believe those people didn't go and have their wisdom centers balanced. They weren't even aware that their wisdom centers or their heart center or their seat of the soul was out of balance. They didn't even consider that. Mm-hmm. Like, how would I even live without that? How would I even move? This is what it's going to be like in the future. But here we are, and it takes us types that are willing to see the value in that, to be willing to define what's happening in a spiritual, ritualistic, and ceremonial way that's maybe not...
It's like the yummiest way.
It's so yummy. That's the best word.
There's a reason why the other things haven't solved everything.
Right.
And that's not to say, like, everything... There's, like, a piece to the pie,
Right. It's a piece. Right. Totally.
But we do have a spiritual self, and it is very much neglected in this world that we live in. And, and so, of course, we're sick. Me being struggling with addiction, my soul is sick. Absolutely. I was missing my soul.
Right.
And I was trying to fill it with something external. So nature is bringing back you that is missing.
And I love how you always call it your medicine.
Thank you.
I love that.
It's a medicine.
I love that whenever I'm talking to you in a reference, you're like, well, my medicine. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know, I always just think I love it.
You were talking about the times that we're in, and there's a prophecy called the Pachacuti, and it's the great turning over of time. And so, again, the Incas and the Peruvians, they had been so quote unquote, again, isolated with the stars and the elements, and they actually were able to read destiny through the stars and through connecting with Earth. And there has been prophecy that we've been going through a 500-year cycle of darkness and dark times, which to me feels very relevant. And what's really cool is that everything is in a cyclical nature, and so 500 years of dark times means we're coming into 500 years of light, the return of the light. And so it's really cool to think about how even energy healing, for example, that it's becoming a bigger thing, or soul level healing, that's like the return of our own light. So I just wanted to speak to that like we have been in darkness, but we are coming into light, and we do have a responsibility to claim that, to embody that, to do the healing work, to do the giving back, to come into right relationship with ourselves, so that we can learn how to come into right relationship with our environment, friends, people, places, animals, trees, nature. So the light is coming back.
Oh, awesome.
It's coming back.
I love it. So how does this modality, how has it brought you to wholeness?
I think it's slowly pieced me back together. I think for me, carrying all those heavy energies, I identified with them. I started those voices in my head, like the inner critic, and it played out for so long that I believed it then.
Right.
And I think working within this path, it's allowing me to differentiate so that I can reconnect to my true self, who has gifts, who is a being of light, who wants to be of service, who wants to connect heart to heart with others. But then it's also given me permission to explore those places that have been out of alignment for me, explore and take accountability and responsibility for those places that have been imprinted on me, whether by society or myself, that are making me sick, and there has been space to feel and heal, experience it all. Yeah.
So what does wholeness mean to you? What does that concept mean to you or for you?
I feel it's a place of safety. I think it's a place to be and express all of who we are. I think it's a place of, versus like suppressing aspects of ourselves, we actually embrace them, even the worst, quote unquote, right? Ones that we want to alienate, that we're like, get out of here, like letting them come, because truly I think that that's just a reflection of the pain. Like if you have not even an inner critic, but someone who's just a voice in your head that's so mean to you or so scared, like obviously something happened, right? For you to take that on. And so wholeness to me is being able to lovingly embrace all those aspects, to be your own bridge to your heart, through your heart, to those parts of yourself.
We invite you to thewholenessnetwork.com, where you'll find the Wholeness Library. Inside, you'll find tutorials, downloads, mini classes, and all sorts of streaming content for you on your wholeness journey.